Happy July 4th, if you happen to be watching it today and not up to anything else. I thought I would share what is probably the most epic troll in defense of Comicsgate, whether direct or indirect, that I have ever seen. And we're going to go through that in a second. But I want to say, the 4th of July, Independence Day, is really a day for me that's similar to Thanksgiving. I know that I had no choice in being born in the United States, but for some really lame reason, I feel pride and I feel lucky. I know a lot of people weren't as fortunate, and it's something you can't control. Having pride in where you're born is as silly as having pride in the color of your skin, in my opinion. It's just not anything you can control. But I found myself digging a trench this morning at 7 a.m. out there with a shovel and a massive piece of equipment running electrical lines and building a pool that I had saved up for about 3 years, really enjoying the fruits of my labor. I had to dig the trench because I didn't have enough money to pay the $2,000 to run the natural gas and electric out there. So my friend and I dug the trench ourselves. The hard work was hard. It was hot. But now I've got a delicious drink in a plastic cup. And this story is going to make everything all right. So if you're aware of the Comicsgate movement, I think if I had to ultra summarize it, it's really just a pushback against the PC culture kind of taking over comics or infecting it, depending on how extreme you want to go. And there has been a Rolling Stone journalist who has long been trying to write an article about Comicsgate, about the Comicsgate community, and paint it in a light that is unsavory. So Rolling Stone journalist was attempting to do a story on, quote, traditionalist superhero comic books and the manners and methods of aggregating funds for the production of such. And she ended up getting absolutely trolled by the former CTO of Business Insider and crowdfunding upstart researcher Pax Dixon. And I'm going to share the specifics of the story. Now, Pax is infamous in a way that he was scheduled, I believe, to speak at Charlottesville. Okay, this isn't about his personal beliefs. He's entitled to hold them. I agree. I neither agree or disagree with them. They're just not mine. Therefore, I have no opinion of them. But he's a well-known former CTO of Business Insider that got fired for making some off-colored tweets that some Slate reporter ended up quote mining, took out of context, and published. More recently, he co-founded and was a CTO of Researcher and later Freestarter. Definitely a further of right center crowdfunding platform that funds journalists like Laura Loomer, Jack Posobiec, and also Alt Comics. He parted way with the company about a year ago. The Rolling Stone reporter, Amanda Robb, contacted him about a story she's doing on Comicsgate. She's well known for being a hit journalist and allegedly funded by Soros. We're going to look at some of the investigative fraud with Amanda Robb. So, is Pax necessarily a good guy? That's not really for me to say. But it's neither here nor there. And he was a little slight right, but then after getting painted in the light, he went pretty when he got hit pieces written about him and things like that, he went pretty hard right. And as somebody who has faced that sort of social media backlash and things like that and it has shifted me to the right. I completely understand. I don't think I went as far as he did, but that's not really for me to judge. Needless to say, he was fairly middle of the road, then got his life ruined by one of these reporters. So, you know, let's get into the story. The Investigative Fund. Amanda Robb is a writer based in New York. She has been contributing writer for Oprah magazine, and her work also appeared in New York Times, Newsweek, New York, George, Marie Claire, and more. Investigation. Pizzagate. Anatomy of a fake news scandal. The making of an American terrorist. So we can see the type of writer she is, right? We can see also that diversity in comics is not a fan. I don't like this. This crosses the line into cruelty, and I don't like people being demeaned. Well, what happened? Let's see. Here we have Amanda Robb wearing, curiously, a Make America Great hat, and does not appear to be very happy to be doing so. A fortnight ago, I was contacted by Miss Amanda Robb, who identified herself as a journalist. Having had such a personal history of difficulty with unsavory wretches of that sort, and being a well-known proponent of a harsh criminal punishment for their un-American collectivist scribblings, I, of course, immediately recommended that Miss Robb engage in a vigorous act of self-procreation. Go fuck yourself. Miss Robb, however, would not be deterred. She was earnestly seeking my comment regarding traditionalist superhero comic books and the manners and methods of which aggregating funds of production are such. What she's trying to do here, in my opinion, is to tie the alt-right to the Comicsgate movement, how they get their funding. Now she's trying to take somebody who is an alt-right figure and tie him into Comicsgate. The aggressively persistent Miss Robb told me she was a journalist for the widely known Rolling Stone magazine, which magazine, I learned, is not actually solely published for manipulative career assassinations of washed-up entertainers and the dissemination of libelous false rape accusations against innocent frat boys, but purports to do actual journalism. I questioned this ambition, of course. Miss Robb assured me that the former incautious Rolling Stone editors responsible for recent libelous fiction had been quite thoroughly sacked after a massive financial settlement, and they had been replaced by a new crop of editors who were assuredly much cleverer about not being found responsible for making things up in any legally actionable way. Upon pursuing Miss Robb's prior work at Marie Claire and The Guardian, the investigation fund of the national magazine focused on baby killing tips, a convenient debunking of investigations of elite pedophile rings, and Miss Robb's personal experience with extensive plastic surgery, I could only conclude that Miss Robb must be undoubtedly amongst the finest politically axe-grinding journalists working at the stale boomer left-wing pop music magazines today. Jesus. I explained Miss Robb that I had retired to the quiet life of simple gentleman farmer, knew and cared little about comic books, and I did not seek further attention from the media propaganda complex. I further explained that I considered her employers and her, quote, profession to be distasteful at best and criminal at worst, and I expected she might not have the best intentions toward me, given my knowledge about how modern journalism is done. That's right. These people, all they do is write hit pieces, and my past experiences being subject of the yellow press. Right? I directly and forthnightly, informed Miss Robb that I considered her to be my enemy and refused to help her. Miss Robb, however, was not to be discouraged in any declaration. She insisted on an interview despite my pugilistic resistance and emphatically asserted that it would be helpful for her story. Worn down by her intrepid pleadings, I reluctantly agreed and set up a meeting with her in New York City for the next afternoon. I wasn't in New York City. And in fact, I was at home over 100 miles away from New York City, and I had absolutely no ability or plans to be in New York City the next day, but Miss Robb was so insistent that I decided to just make the appointment with her and hope for the best. I agreed, but explained that I required significant security measures for meetings with disreputable journalist class she represented, and she would have to follow my security directives to the letter in order to get the interview. First, I ordered her to purchase a bright red Make America Great Again hat at Trump Tower before her trip. I explained that the fashionable hat would cost $35 due to its quality American-made construction, but I assured her that her paymasters at Rolling Stone magazine would certainly reimburse her, and I needed her to have the hat for identification purposes later. I also sent her an address to a closed restaurant 3 hours drive from New York and told her to go to that location and wait for further instructions. On the appointed date, she eventually arrived, later than the expected time, as is the wont of her gender and profession, but nonetheless, I directed her to the next rendezvous point, a small restaurant with outdoor seating, 30 minutes drive further west. I told her upon arrival at this location, she should sit outside and send me a selfie with a red MAGA hat on in order to confirm her arrival and would help identify her. And she did it! At this point, the entire endeavor had been gone precisely according to plan, so I'm not sure what explained Miss Rob's clear expression of annoyance in the selfie I received. Perhaps she had a premonition of unfortunate disappointment to come via some ocular power, as some of the distaff sex have been known to possess. However, given the remainder of this tale, Miss Rob's psychic ability seems scant. I directed Miss Rob up the hill to a pleasant location near the lake in a nearby state park, where I imagined that I might have waited had I actually left my house, which I hadn't. She expressed reluctance, and then I became confused, sending me a picture of a park sign at the shale pit instead of the lake. As if a knowledgeable, well-placed journalistic source like myself would imagine hanging out in a dusty shale pit. In retrospect, I suppose a state park with dozens of ambiguous signs, making half a dozen non-interconnecting entrances and extremely spotty cell phone service, was not the best choice of a rendezvous location. By the time Miss Rob had arrived in the exact location I had imagined I might be, I unfortunately was no longer imagining myself there. I certainly tried my best to find Miss Rob, despite having never left my house, which was, as I said, over a dozen miles from the park. Having imagined myself in the place with such spotty cell service, I was unable to reply to Miss Rob's repeated messages looking for me until quite a while later. When I was able to imagine myself in better conditions, I found that she had meandered all over the park in a futile attempt to find a place I had imagined I might be. After a stink lack of success, then booked a nearby hotel room and informed me that she was prepared to await more auspicious outcome on the morrow. Not wanting to disappoint, I proposed a very early 6:30 a.m. meeting at the Cracker Barrel for the next morning, to which Miss Rob graciously accepted. Unfortunately, that breakfast was to remain one cracker short of the barrel. In an unforeseen turn of events, I was hypothetically summoned at sunrise to aid a neighbor in rounding up a dozen escaped hogs. I am here. Fuck, I've been helping my neighbor round up escaped pigs since dawn. Can we meet later today? Seriously, escaped pigs in the rain sounds awful and also sort of fun. I'm going to stay over again because the rain is terrible, but I want to stay closer to where you are. Is this a good area? Actually, before I pay for another hotel room, do you promise you'll meet me sometime today? Tonight is better. Let's meet tonight. Engaged as I was in the pretend porcine shenanigans, I quite reasonably missed the time for my breakfast meeting with Miss Rob. I communicated my regrets with her shortly after and asked her if we could meet that afternoon, but suggested meeting that evening after I had sufficiently recovered from my swine herding efforts. That night, I changed the time of our dinner from 7:30 to 9 p.m. on a whim just to keep Miss Rob entertained, and at the time she informed me that her editors were getting irritated. The thought of the finest political editors in the boomer left pop music magazine business being personally irritated with my humble antics left me filled with amused pity. Later, I messaged Miss Rob to tell her that I had been delayed by a Henway. She not unreasonably asked, "What's a Henway?" To which I replied, "About 3 pounds." She didn't understand this and began to rudely question my subsequent promise to arrive in a BOFA, brisk or fast arrival, a well-known acronym. I finally decided I had enough of the rudeness of the press that day, and I let her know that the only BOFA she would be accepting was in BOFA D's nuts. Got him! In conclusion, I'd like to say I'm truly sorry we had a troubling arranging our meetup, Miss Rob. P.P.S. Wear the hat. Shall we try once more? I'll be at Famous Ray's Pizza in Brooklyn Tuesday at noon. No, the other one. This time, I swear I'll show up. Now, you can say it's mean, and you probably wouldn't be wrong. But if you put yourself in this man's shoes, a man that was fired, persecuted by disingenuous media members, I think it's just called just desserts. She had no physical harm. She had her time wasted. That's much better than him getting fired and attacked on the news sites and social media over a few edgy tweets. And the bonus is she's trying to shit on comics. So fuck her.